How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to Pixelated Thoughts, and on this episode, we're going to do a spoiler review about Metaphor ReFantazio. This is one of my favorite games of the year. Somehow, I convinced Brad to play. Actually, he just played the demo and ended up liking it. And we really want to talk about this game because it's been a few weeks. I think we've had more than enough time to kind of get our thoughts on it. And I think we'll just dive right in. So this is going to have spoilers. There's going to be we're going to be discussing a lot of the plot, characters, but it's not going to be that long a video, just around 30 minutes. But Brad, give me your overall thoughts on Metaphor.
It was just a fantastic JRPG. It kind of scratched that itch that a lot of recent games, I've been on a kind of a trail of not so great games this year, and that one really just kind of sparked something, and I just really enjoyed the grind. I mean, I probably spent about 15 extra hours that I shouldn't have spent in that game, doing monotonous things that were kind of pointless, because at the end of the game it's very easy to grind stuff. But yeah, it was just a great experience, outside of what I've played this year.
Now, this is coming from someone who doesn't normally play, like, you haven't played much of the other Atlus games, right? You haven't played all of the Persona series or the Shin Megami Tensei, no, right? Which is played. So like this is kind of like you're kind of getting used to the formula. But the thing is, what's interesting is, a lot of people who've played it would say like it's an evolution for Atlus's JRPG formula, but really to me it's like a step forward, because there's a lot of quality of life improvements that are found here, and everything feels so much snappier, from combat, exploration, being able to fast travel to all these different locations, the quick way to complete most side content, missions and stuff like that. Like, it's so quick, and it just like keeps moving. And I think that for a game that is initially, I want to say 65 to 70 hours, I think that's pretty much, if you're going to play a normal difficulty and you are absolutely trying to grind this game and do most of the major dungeons before you get to the end, I think that the pace of this game is so damn fast. Like, you don't even think about it. You are like, the moment you get kicked off the off the wagon into the wild and you get to the main city, and then you're just like trucking along. It is main quest, meet a couple new characters, you have time to kind of like set up and get acclimated a little bit, and then it's like, we got new characters, we got bosses to fight, we have all these things to do. I'm just shocked that this, to me, it just kind of felt good to take away like the student aspect of things from like Persona, you know what I mean, and like trying to like recruit monsters and things like that. Also, it's like we have the archetypes. I love them. I think they're really well done. I like the fact that every character can switch the archetype. It's not just the main character. That's always been like a criticism of mine in some of these games, where it's like every character has like a specific persona or whatever, but here it's like, what archetype do you want to be? How do you want to fit the party dynamic? How do you want to affect some of these fights moving forward? Because everyone can be as flexible as possible. To me, after putting time into this game, and I've beaten it twice, by the way, so I've done 2 playthroughs. This is my game of the year. And I didn't think that was going to be possible, because there were some really good games that came out this year. This has been a really strong year in gaming, and I know that you played some pretty some pretty so-so experiences. But I think this has been a pretty strong year in gaming. And Metaphor was kind of the one where I was like, Atlus can either fall into that Persona category where like there's some tedium, right, when you're doing things, or it can be like kind of a straightforward fantasy adventure, really dark themes, really interesting characters. I don't think there's a miss, in my opinion, in regards to like the connections either. I think every character is well fleshed out, which is surprising, because there's connections in some of the games where people would argue like, oh, that's just that doesn't make sense. Like, this character is, they're okay, whatever. But here in Metaphor, I think like every character, everyone who like joins your party, and every connection you meet, and like they all serve a purpose, because like if you max out their connections and bonds, you can get some really good buffs for your party. And I found that just like it hit the sweet spot, because like the music was great, the combat was snappy, I thought exploration was solid, even like the parts that you would consider repetitive, like the outside dungeons that all really just like look like one big blob of you running into a forest or into the mist. Even those were engaging because of the way they set up enemies and stuff like that. What do you, in your opinion, think that this game nails?
That transition between combat and exploration. A lot of games, it's either incredible, like the combat's too simplistic, as in, you know, you just walk up, whack an enemy and they die, and then you just continue exploring, or you know, you have to like interact with the enemy. There's a loading screen. You have to hop in. You have to figure out what the enemies are. You have to plan your move. You have to, you know, I felt like this one really hit the mark of, it gave you enough, just indicators that it was just like, there's also like a, hey, if you already know the weakness, you can just press a button and it just does the, you know, the attack that will leverage that weakness, right? There's a lot of speed ups that you could leverage. I typically just kind of brute force my way through most of the fights. Just there's just like strongest attack, go, and that was it. But it was just, I really liked that really fluid navigation. And then you go into a fight, you're there. Most fights only last like 2 full turns. I mean, unless it's like an actual boss fight. I mean, almost everything is gone within 2 turns, especially if you take advantage of the ambush system. I mean, I would probably say 90% of my fights were ended in the first turn, if not the first turn. By the time they were able to take an action, they were already dead. So, you know, and then you're right back into whatever you were doing.
Yeah, I love the fact Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Nope. I was just saying, and I also really liked the overworld abilities, right? Like each archetype had its own protagonist specific ability that, you know, you could leverage in a longer dungeon, which most of the dungeons really, outside of like the first 2 or 3 dungeons, I really didn't come across like an issue of running out of MP or, you know, being on the danger of like everyone almost dying. About halfway through, it just became kind of frivolous at that point. But yeah.
Yeah, when it came to like the combat, what was interesting is that like when you're in the overworld, you can choose to just escape. You don't have to engage every enemy. And I like the fact that, you know, you had the different tiers, enemies you knew you could fight and kill, enemies that would more than likely take more than a turn or 2. But like the moment you got into a rhythm, right, understand how like all the buffs and debuffs worked, understand how the magic system worked, you could really just like destroy and level enemies out pretty quickly. Even with the boss fights too, because like, you know, they have that bullshit ability to like add like 4 turns or something, which could be disastrous in some fights. I think that, you know, they just absolutely kind of took essentially what Persona did well, like, and then kind of said, okay, let's make it faster. Let's kind of get you through these fights really quickly. Let's also, like I said, when you're going through and then, you know, leveling up your bonds, and it's not just like your main party, it's like every character, because every character like Bridget, Gallica, you know, who is it? What's old boy's name who fucking like who had like the saddest one? Oh no, Alonzo had like a crazy fucking his shit was insane. That's cinema right there, so I'm gonna point that out. But like you level it up and then you get like special buffs towards something, and you're like, yes dude, like, you know, one of the things I was like a big fan of was when I was going through Maria's entire bond thing, I was like, oh crap, if you do hers, like she gives you like mass experience boost like through the end, so you have to really focus on that person. I was like, this is really good, because I was, you know, sometimes you go through these types of games where you're affected by other NPCs, and sometimes like the effects are just like, why would I even go through this story other than to be a completionist? But you actually get a lot to do this type of stuff, and I thought that was pretty fantastic. Like I love Katharina, so like her max bond allows her to like go into some dungeons and she can like attack one of the dragons at the end of the game. She was in the dungeon with me, so like every time we attack, like she would immediately go and attack first. So even though they had that star scream whatever where it was like 9 turns for no reason, right, I mitigated that because she was able to actually like hit them first, and I was able to hit weaknesses constantly, which once again, you know, it just, they give you all of these tools and say, here, like, we're going to give you a kind of an extended tutorial. I would say like the first 4 to 6 hours of the game are a tutorial period, right? And most JRPGs, you know that sometimes the first 4 to 6 hours can really make or break like your fun with your time with it because it can take way too long. But here it's like you're intrigued by this new world. The systems are so much faster. You have this badass music, and it really feels like they're not pulling any punches either. Like, you know, the first cutscene in this game is like the king getting assassinated by Luis, so we're just like, cool. And then obviously, you know, I love the fake out with Grius, right? I think, can we all admit that when they introduced Grius and we got to that point with Stroll where like they showed him get his archetype and Grius didn't get one, we're like, he's gonna die. Like, I mean, the moment they did that, I was like, he's gonna die. But like the way he did it, I did not expect it to be as brutal. And I feel like one of the things I really enjoy about this game is that its commitment to getting you uncomfortable about certain things. Like, you know, the way they introduce humans, right? The way we kind of like learn about them, why they look that way. You know, obviously, you know, you get to learn at the end of the story that pretty much we're just every race in this world is just an evolution of them. But you have so many like fucked up moments of like, you know, an entire like town or township feeding their children to a human baby. That was just like the most terrifying thing. I think you texted me, you're like, what did I just look at? Like, what is that? And I love how twisted the story was. And I love the fact that instead of you just like outright executing her for her crimes, she's like, I'll kill myself. Like when you get into that, by the way, when you get to the port town and you're sitting there and I'm like, okay, yeah, they'll kill her off screen. They straight up just like stab her. I was like, what the fuck? It's so well done. And I think that like, you know, I was thoroughly engaged, even as there were some twist that like you could kind of see coming. Now the Alonso twist, I think that was just well done because like you expected him to be dead. And I think though if you completed let me see. I think though if you had completed, I think Junie, right? I can't pronounce her name. Is it Junie?
Juno.
Junie, yeah. If you completed Juna's like quest and you saw how the Nydia actually transform and stuff like that, like on my second playthrough, I was like, you know what? This motherfucker probably transformed because no one knows what like the Nydia actually look like. If you look on their indicators on the screen, it actually tells you that they actually have no idea what they actually look like. There's no indicator. So I was like, oh, when Alonso pulled that, I was like, dude, I wanted to slap. I was like, this is perfect. He made it look like he got killed. I was like invested. I was mad, dude, when that happened. I was mad when the Brigitte thing happened too. Because I was like, they killed a dog this early? It's a puppy. Like, what the fuck, man? And then, you know, you found out at the end, you beat the game, obviously, but you found out at the end, if you talk to her, that the puppy's alive, you know? So I was like, okay, so they weren't monsters in that regard. But I also like Luis. I like his character. His character makes sense in the world. That type of nihilistic view about trying to tear everything down because he knows that it's not good, that he, you know, suffered through all these injustices. I thought I kind of wish they had a little bit more of him. I felt like we got like an entire gap in the story without him when you were trying to kind of just when you're trying to build yourself up for the entire King's race. I was kind of like, you know, I want to see more of the dude. And then when you get to see him, you're just like, you know, he's just a smug asshole, right? But he's also very, very well written, very smart. What did you think about Luis? Like, honestly.
He was a strong antagonist. The little plot twist in the middle there where he actually dies. I was like,
did you think he died? I didn't think he died.
So, I mean, it was like, okay, maybe he's just like the front man for someone bigger, right? Like I was like, maybe that is possible.
Now, Persona games have done that. They have done that in the past where they have like they have a villain and you kill him. It's like, I'm the big bad guy.
Right. So I was like, that's possible. I was like, however, he just screams bat, like his whole like visual like aspect is just
bad guy.
Best
design in the game.
I'm a bad guy because I have a full white trench coat and you don't. So
these really badass like lapels coming down and stuff. He looked amazing. I love the way he looked.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, so when we killed Zorba at the beginning of the game, I literally went, there's no fucking way we just killed a necromancer that quickly and then like he just, you know, just walks the fuck. No, he's clearly coming back. Now, I think because it took so long to get to that midpoint, you know, to me, I was like, okay, so we killed Luis, which was a really badass scene, by the way. Everything, it was really funny because Stroll's like, yeah, we're gonna fucking like just kind of drop you down, and then you're gonna throw the spear. Yuna's gonna like supercharge the spear, and we're gonna launch that thing through his heart. And I was like, all right, you know, calm down. And then it happens, and then you know, I just feel like every bad character, like Forden was just, you know, he's just the ultimate scumbag, and a lot of JRPGs generally have like members of the church being just completely terrible, shitty fucking people, and Forden followed in that. I kind of wish we got to see more done with that council, though. I felt like a lot of the characters, they were just kind of like useful pawns, I guess, is the best way to say it, right? But yeah, I mean, I feel bad for the monk. I can't remember his name, but that dude ended up just being at the church, being just selling us stuff.
He's like, what do I do now?
It's like, what do I do?
Everything has been a lie.
He's like, you can just sit your bitch ass over there and hang out, man. But no, I when that scene happened, like I was like, oh. But so when they killed, when it was like Basilio and his brother, like it was kind of weird because I was like, he's a cool character. I don't know who I wanted. I was kind of hoping there'd be a choice of who you got to choose because I was thinking they were going to do the same thing in combat. You know, Basilio would have, they both seem like they're both physical attackers. So I was kind of like, oh, we'll just get to choose one of them. But you know, Atlus games, I don't think they've ever done choices right like that. But no, I think, yeah, every character, man, like, I'm trying to think of, like, was there a character that I didn't like or they didn't get enough time? Because I'm going through the list, and I think that everyone was just really well done. And also, they had good depth to the characters, too.
Yufa's character, I liked her story stuff that happened, but it was just like her as like a party member. She just felt very dry. I don't know. It was just, and it might be because she was like excluded from, you know, all of society. So she didn't really have much input like everyone else would have, but her character specifically just felt just kind of just there for a lot of.
Yeah. The big change from the Persona series, usually with the bonds, is that you'd have like a romantic interest, and it was clear that she's the one, right? It was clear, like the way they treated her. It's like, we're not like, I know that there were some people who were like, oh, it's got to be Gallica, and I'm like, Gallica's a fairy. That'd be really weird if the prince was into her. But like with Yufa, it felt like the moment she talked to you, the moment she like held your hand during the thing, all that stuff. I love her brother so much because on the beach conversation with him, that dude threatens to throw you in the water with sharks. He's like, it seems my sister is fond of you. He's like, you know, these waters are said to be infested with sharks at night, so it'd be a shame if you just fell in. I was like, it's like, first off, dude, didn't I just save you at the Dragon Temple? What are you talking about? Is there a character that you wish we got to know more about? Is there anything that you feel like we could have, you know, kind of leaned in more toward, like Metaphor could have like expanded upon? I have one character, but I want to see if you have one as well.
So actually, like the first half of the game, the protagonist, I was like, this character is just a nothing burger. Like he's literally just like one-liners. Like literally, the party is speaking for him essentially. Like Stroll was majority of the opinion of the party for a long time. I was like, this protagonist just like makes no sense to me because he's just like, yeah, we'll do that. And
it turns out that there's a reason behind it.
Yeah. And I was like, okay. I feel much better now because I was like, man, he's just such
he's nothing,
a placeholder.
Right?
He's a placeholder for something.
Do you think that was like the intention? Like he's just like nothing, and then eventually we get to that point where he's like, I am nothing, and they're like, oh shit, that's the prince.
I guess. I mean, it like once again, because it happened so late in the game, I was like, maybe he is just a random person that was part of the resistance and was chosen. And
that would be the most cliche JRPG trope ever. We just take a character who has almost no connection to anything, and then you make him the hero For those who are laughing, there's a lot of games like that where you're just like, what do you do? It's like, I don't know, bro. They just picked me up. That was Suikoden. Like, it's like, yeah, you're the son of this general, but now that the Liberation Army's head died, you're the guy. It's like, what are you doing? What's going on here? You know who I thought it was? Rella, the who was the adoptive sister of Juna, and he was like the big figure in the Sanctus Church. I felt like when they introduced her character, I love her design. One, I think she looks fucking amazing. But then when we got into like that part of the game where it's pretty much down to three people in the King's Cup, right, in that tournament, I was like, so one, I love that twist to find out that she's just like, you know, just manipulating the entire crowd, which I thought was a fantastic twist. Even though, you know, if you're probably, I was like just naive. I was like, yeah, this character's probably just gonna be. I thought she was gonna join our party. I was like, when did she arrive? Like, what's going on here? And then when she did that, I was like, that's fantastic. But then we just like jump into a boss fight and kill her. That was like, I felt like when we went to that mage area, that mage town, that castle, I was like, dude, this is gonna be fucking fantastic. We get a whole new dungeon to explore. And they're like, all right, cool, we're gonna fight out here. It's like, wait. And
there's a dragon.
And there's a dragon. And like the fight was cool, but I felt like that part in general was rushed. And I think like the subreddit was like, yeah, this feels like it was just cut content, which is crazy to me because that would have been amazing content to explore, in my opinion.
That was my least favorite fight. That dragon fight. It may have just been the party composition that I had, but I physically could not do any damage. I think I had mostly magic people, and obviously it repelled pretty much all elements.
Right.
And I was just screwed. I was literally doing like 200 damage per turn. It was so stupid.
Dude,
that fight took 30 minutes.
The moment I was like, I was gonna work for me. I have all fire people. I was like, we're just gonna start hitting all these weaknesses, man. I think the toughest fight for me was that final boss fight with like Luis, and the only reason was because I didn't bring Heisme with me, because I know Heisme has that auto dodge pretty much that, like, you know, can absolutely wreck him. But that last fight, dude, if you were not prepared for that final, like, not the three-headed fight, that one's not that bad. That one's okay if you have Almighty. But that fight with Luis, where he's like, yeah, man, let me just fucking target characters. Let me just hit like 8 fucking turns, because if you don't literally like damage him on that first fight, you don't bring him down to half health, he will absolutely work you the rest of the game, like the match. I was like, dude, I have no one alive but the Prince because he has all these fucking resistances. I scraped it by, but goodness gracious. I will say though, if there is one flaw with this game, is that New Game Plus is not, to me, like well fleshed out. And it's one, and then like usually with these types of JRPGs, because it's fairly linear, you're not really doing anything outside like some optional boss fights. There's like an optional super boss fight that is fucking terrifying. But one of the things that I was doing was like, I was burning through certain areas. So like when you are going through New Game Plus, you will have all of your weapons, right? You don't have the levels and stuff, but you have your weapons. You have pretty much all your mag, all that type of stuff. You don't have your archetypes. You have to re-level them up, which won't take long. Or you actually have all your archetype levels. But when you get to that certain areas, you know, because there's a flow to it, like you do your dungeon diving, you then build up your like certain statuses, like for your king, like your royalty stuff, and then you then go fight, and then it's a nice flow between like exploration, combat, doing side quests, right? When you are a New Game Plus, you will have nothing to do. Like that 30-day bump, right? I did nothing for like 15 days. At the end of the game, I was like, can we speed this up? You are so grossly overpowered at that point. And then like the boss fights that may have given people trouble, like some of the optional ones right at the end, you are just walking right through that. I think the New Game Plus mode was essentially meant for the hardest difficulty in the game, which, let me say, it's a 60-hour game, and you can probably skip most cutscenes. I'm not doing that. I don't think I can do it again. Do you have any major flaws that you saw in Metaphor, or any flaws at all that you want to like discuss for a little bit?
I had one.
Ooh, what is it?
That's a good question. That was honestly. So I mean, I did play the game on the normal difficulty, and I really didn't have any difficulty during the game whatsoever. Like I said, after the first 3 or 4 dungeons, it was, um, I felt like I'd kind of scraped and saved enough the rest of the game where I never had to worry about MP or really health in any dungeon. There was no like super dungeon that like I barely like that I had to leave before I finished,
Right.
or anything like that. And so just and once again, I could have just played at a harder difficulty and just made it harder. But I was just say just the general um, difficulty of the game. Like almost every boss just has a gimmick to it. It's just like if you know the weakness or if you understand um, how that boss works, then you're going to do well. Once you get Heismay's royal,
oh dude, his royal
archetype,
oh no,
and you max it out. If he dodges, they lose all their turns. The second dragon trial that I did, where every turn he has 8 turns, he may have gotten 2 attacks off every turn before.
I had
it was just
I had Heismay. It was like I didn't use Heismay a lot until like I realized how useful the ninja and the thief like tree was. But like I had Hulkenberg in my party the entire time, and her if you use Heismay and Hulkenberg, because like her royal archetype allows her to deflect like most attacks and shit, dude. I'm just sitting there like, all right, cool. Like I get 1 dodge in, which will like remove most of the turns, and I get like an entire barrier pulls up, so it just removes everything. So like the Luis fight was so trivial. He's like, I have to defend myself. I'm like, no, you don't. You have no shot against me, because the prince is stupidly overpowered. I think that's the point of that. I think the point of like the prince's archetype is to be stupidly overpowered. But he felt like it was like a notch above. Like you have all resistances, and then like his straight up like he has so many high damaging attacks. I'm like, what are we doing with this character? But
sorry, I remember what it is now. So the order that you get the characters in,
yes,
I didn't like the fact that you get Stroll, Hulkenberg, and Heismay consecutively, because those are all physical characters. You get no magical characters until you get Juna, and that's like halfway through the game. So if the main character is not playing a mage type character, like some type of elemental character, like you were just physical the first half of the game, or first 1/3 of the game.
I try to, as quickly as possible, just use those little items that increase experience for the archetype. I use that on like the mage and stuff like that. Max that out to get the passive to that 15% MP, and then also just like, to kind of balance out my characters, because I did like all the trinkets allowing you. There's really good flexibility in this game, which is to me was really shocking, because like the game gave you just a ton of tools to be successful. It was like, yeah, so we understand the game's going to have like some difficulty to it, right? There's going to be, some challenges, but like you will be prepared. I think that's the important thing. I think overall, like outside of like small nitpicks, with Rella as a character, like some content, like, but like every time I was going to the overworld and we were traveling to an area, I like sat there and just listened to the narration. I was like, oh, this is great. I love this. Like this is the first time I think Atlus has done like a flat out fantasy title. And it feels like they, obviously were inspired by so many different things that they really like did a good job of like bringing it all together. I just like, it's rare though that I've played a game that is this long, but the pace is like so fast. You're like, oh, I'm going to play this for an hour. 6 hours later, I was like, where'd the time go? That's exactly how Metaphor felt like for me. Like I don't want to dog out another game, but like I told you recently that I've been playing Dragon Age the Veilguard, and I cannot play that game for more than like an hour or 2 hours. But I think that's because the mission structure is set up the way it is, so the pace is slower. But with this game, it's like, yeah, from start to finish, we're just moving. Like, should I go back? Nope, just keep going forward, brother. Like, fucking grind those dungeons. You're gonna have more than enough time to do all these side stories. But I will say, like, this is, I love Atlus games. I was curious to see if other people would too. Surprisingly, I do have friends who have played this and loved it, which totally shocked me, because Atlus games, JRPGs in general, this because we're both like huge fans of them. Like they can be, you know, hit or miss in terms of like appeal. But I think like with this game selling 1 million copies in its first week and like the way that everything was set up and yeah, man, I think just taking out the school life, dude. I don't have to remember how to answer fucking tests.
Right.
Eh,
Yeah. So I'm not a huge big of I'm not a huge
huge,
fan
huge
of
bigs.
the huge big of the fan um of like deadlines.
Yeah,
There being like finite time to do things, right?
right.
You have to really plan. I will say that this game compared to so I did play Persona 3 a bit,
Hmm.
and I really felt like I did not have enough time to do the things that I wanted to do
Right.
in a timely manner. This one, typically every deadline that you're given, I would probably have 2 or 3 days to spare before I did all the side quests, before I did all the bonding that I could do. I did max out all of my bonds. Um, I unlocked all the archetypes for the main character.
This
I
man
did all
tried
the
to
cooking.
platinum the fucking game on the first try, dude.
Yeah, I did. I did all of the food. That one I kind of like save scummed. Okay. Another complaint is the fishing. The the re, for the fact that it is a timed thing. Like it takes
Yep.
half a day to fish,
Yep.
and you takes half a day to get the bait to fish. And it's a random thing, so it's like you might not get it. So there's potentially best case scenario a full day wasted of just trying to get a piece of food or just to get the ingredients just to cook the food later. Like it with probably a 2 day maximum. So it's like completely random and not worth it. So I
No,
was basically saving and loading and wasted like 8 days trying to get the last the last
that
ingredient.
that
And then
reminds me of was it Final Fantasy 15 when they had that it was the fishing trophy and you're getting all the legendary
yeah.
fish and there was like a glitch and I couldn't get that I was pissed, bro. That took so long. That was the even with like the bullshit like you have to walk this far. The fishing one was just broken and annoying. No, but I
Yeah.
mean like it's not I would say it's not a perfect game, but the sum of its parts like this is one of the most impressive like JRPGs in a long time. And like shockingly, I have Brad here who has like you know he makes fun of chibi for Persona games. Like I have like one of our friends, Josh. Like he, not Jack, but Josh. He has really gotten into Atlus games and he really likes Metaphor. He was like, "How many hours did it take to beat you?" I was like, 65. I'm pretty sure it took you like 70 because you did all the other stuff. But yeah, no, I think they nailed it. This is just one of those games where I feel like if you pick it up and play it, like I think the voice acting is great. Obviously, I'm a huge fan of this music. I told Brad this before. Like I literally the moment they started that chant near the end in the boss fight, and it just had that like huge like lift, the crescendo ish type. I was like, dude, I'm fucking into this thing. It gets you super hyped up. Um, the art's fantastic. Like the menu is just great. Like it's just like they did all the little things to really elevate what Persona, what the formula, the established Atlus formula was, and they nailed it. And it's very shocking that like you know Atlus did
And the
such a good
human
job.
designs are insane.
Love them, and they're actually design and like some of those designs, by the way, are like there's actually art pieces of like you can
Yeah.
find. It's really good. Um, let's get some real quick closing thoughts because I don't want to make this video too long.
JRPGs, they just appeal to certain people and they don't to other people. So it's
Right.
like you definitely there are some people that like wouldn't even touch Skyrim, right? And it's like, well, I'm not gonna, this is way farther than Skyrim as far as just JRPG-ness. So it's like, um, there is a certain kind of people that I would not recommend this to, but generally, if someone asks me about the game, I'll be like, hell yes, please play it. You know, I even went back and bought the extra content later, the downloadable
Oh yeah,
costumes and stuff.
yeah.
Just so just because I could. Really didn't provide anything. I didn't really care for any of the costumes. None
Yeah,
of them really looked that great.
it's definitely interesting like the way the game constantly shifts, right? Like you go from this prince's curse and then you find out that like you're in this huge tournament, you have to like gain favor, and that's always at the forefront when you're doing it. And then like all these different events happening, you like Luis gets killed but he comes back, you end up getting like your Basilio as your final party member. You have to fight the different humans. You find out that like you know our society like led to it, like pretty much destroyed itself, and then, you know, gave birth to this more being the king. All that stuff like was like, it's all really well done, like, and you can kind of follow the pieces to kind of get there. I think obviously, like, you know, as I've played all these games, as I've played all these Persona games before, I'm just a fan of the fact that like they took the established formula, elevated it, and made it digestible in a way where like the tedium went away. Now there's still tedium, no doubt, the fishing shit, right? But like most of the tedium is like at a very, very tolerable level, right, which is very shocking because you and I know that when JRPGs, they usually get into a sequel or they break out like a new game, like a you know, an established developer. It's like, yeah, the same shit's there that you didn't like, but that's okay because you're gonna buy it anyway. You know, you're one of those people. But I really feel like Metaphor is easily my game of the year, which was shocking because I was a huge fan of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and I told you guys that. Where does it rank for you for game of the year? Like, where do you have it right now?
It's probably game of the year.
Yeah.
Like that's, I mean, Rebirth, I actually had some issues with Rebirth. It was a great game. There was way too much content. Like just not too much content, way too many side objectives. Like just after about halfway through the game, I'm just like, I am done with this, but I can't see all these little empty markers, so I have to complete them all.
That is 100% true. Yeah.
But speaking, you mentioned more. This is one of the characters we didn't really talk about. That twist at the end when you find out that he's actually the king.
Oh, you didn't. You didn't put that one together.
No, that one I didn't.
The moment he started talking about the world, like the moment he started, like every time you upgraded the archetype, every time you leveled up, like he would drop hints that felt like, okay, you built this. Okay, you're connected to somebody here. Like this feels too convenient for you. Just like you're not just some random dude. So I was kind of now his aging process, unfortunately, from the king to more like from more to the king. That's rough, brother. I'm so sorry that happened to him. But dude, he went from like looking pretty in shape and young and to like, dear God, he got hit by a truck with grief and shit.
Yeah, and so like I knew he was going to be someone important, like because he had like amnesia or whatever. I knew he was going to be someone important, but I wasn't expecting the king himself.Maybe like his advisor or like his brother or something. Like it just didn't connect to me. But when you go into when you go into the fantasy world, when he knocks the walls down, I was like, this is pretty. That was pretty dope.
So cool.
And I was like, I didn't choose the option to like agree with him or whatever. Can the game end right there if you just agree to be in? Okay.
So for those who don't know,
I know there's a few different.
Oh no, it's that entire section.
Scenarios.
So when you get to that entire section, the first time you talk to Luis when he's on the throne, you can literally say, you're right. You tell Luis you're right, the game ends. And then when you go into fight Luis, you beat him, and then you go into Moore's world, you say, oh no, I'm not doing that. Like, you know, you're right, the fantasy is better. That's when it ends. And then you go into, I think when you talk to Luis again, he gives you that choice again, and you can say, no, I don't want to do it. And that's it. That's how the game ends. So there is like 4 ways to do it. It does not affect, it's obvious that the game has like a strict like trajectory, is a linear JRPG. But I love that option. Love it. All right. That's all for this video, right? If you haven't liked the content, please like, share, and subscribe. We think that you should play Metaphor. We think it's a fantastic game. If you do not feel satisfied with most JRPGs, you're curious, you're on the fence, you're like, oh no, Persona seems like a daunting experience, just know that you put 1 hour into this game, you will come back with 6. Just throwing that out there. I am Ken, that's Brad from Pixelated Thoughts, and we will talk to you next time.